Read Talk is supported by Read Design. With the power of machine learning, Read Design derives patterns and trends that accurately predict the characteristics of finished reads. Founded by Logan Asterling, Read Design makes quality reads with characteristics you can count on. Save valuable time and get back to what you love, making music. Visit readdesign.io to learn more. Welcome to Read Talk. I'm Margaret Marco.
And I'm Courtney Miller. We are very excited to welcome our guest today, Dr. Andrew Parker, Assistant Professor of Oboe at the University of Texas, Austin, and Principal Oboe of the Quad City Symphony. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so happy to be here.
We're so glad to have you here today, Andy. I would like to start with a sort of launch all photon torpedoes kind of question. If you don't mind, we're just going to get right into it. We want to know, how do you build a beautiful tone and desirable response into your read without sacrificing stability or pitch?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it? I love that. So there's three things I'm looking for when I make a read. And the order of importance that the hierarchy of importance I give these three sort of components is really crucial in terms of ending up with that quality I'm looking for, the beautiful tone, the stability, all of those things. So the three things I'm looking for is response, pitch, and tone. And I know that seems really straightforward and somewhat basic. However, I've noticed that a lot of oboists I meet, particularly students I meet, tend to unconsciously or consciously prioritize tone in their reads. And as a result of that, what they end up getting, a large percentage of the time is a read that has maybe a nice tone in the sense that it's got a lot of depth, a lot of cushion, a lot of the qualities we're looking for, but usually flat and unstable. Because, what are the traditional places we go to deepen a read, to get more richness in the tone? We scrape out of the back of the read. That's a very common thing I see. But what is the negative side effect of overscraping that region of the read is that it lowers the pitch, it destabilizes it. The high register oftentimes suffer as a result of that. So for me, the first step in getting the sort of gorgeous tone that I'm looking for without sacrificing those other components is to actually deprioritize tone initially in the process. First, I'm going to really focus on getting that immediacy of response. And obviously, while doing that, I'm going to be paying careful attention to sort of where the pitch floor of the read is wanting to sit. I'm really careful in all steps of my read-making process to not allow that pitch floor to sink too far below that C. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm going to be going for somewhere between a C and a C sharp as my kind of final crow for the read. So I'm going to try to, every step of the way, keep that pitch floor a little bit more up, a little higher. So I'm going to be having to focus on getting that immediacy of response really in the tip region, the heart tip region, really protecting sort of that lower central region of the tip, what I call the cloud region, and really focus on getting a nice compact look to the tip, a nice bottleneck at the base of the tip, or a concavity. I do a lot of studying of the profiles of my read, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, because a lot of the balance I'm looking for in a read I can determine through studying the way the profile or silhouette of the read looks. And I really like to think of it as kind of a humanoid figure with a waist and a bust and shoulders and a neck. During this process of kind of bringing this read into fruition, I'm focusing on keeping that pitch floor up enough and getting that immediacy of response. And if I'm successful in that endeavor, what usually happens is that even before the read is totally finished, I've already built in at that point what I call a pretty good tonal stability, right? The tone feels like it has borders to it. It feels like I can put air into the read as much as I want, and the tone will open up without spreading. But at that point, it's not necessarily perfect yet because it's not finished. So if I really make sure that that response and that pitch is stable from the beginning. I've already done 90% of the work of building in the tone I want. And then what I can do is come back to that read the second day or third day, and start to deepen the read carefully, which is going to bring out a little bit more of that sort of roundedness and richness in the tone without sacrificing that stability. And the way I deepen the read to achieve that is I start to take kind of the final bits of cane out of what I call the waist of the reed, which is sort of the upper part of the channels where the back and the heart meet. I kind of scoop a little bit of cane out of there so I get that concavity in the waist region, and I do the same in the base of the tip. I get a little more concavity there. I scoop some cane out, which not only helps to deepen the reed, but it'll also help reinforce that pitch stability, because you're essentially making the top of the heart a little stronger when you scoop cane out of the base of the tip. And it's the contrast between that sort of thicker top of the heart and that really active, vibrant part at the base of the tip. Obviously, as long as you don't get thin spots, right? What happens if you're scooping cane out of the base of the tip and you get thin spots? You get those sort of chirps in the crow and that sort of whistle sound. So obviously the knife needs to be the right kind of sharp. It needs to be buttery and smooth in its sharpness, so you're not putting little chips and chisels in the base of the tip. And then at that point, I'm pretty close to the finished product. And what I notice is that the reeds that are finished that I really like, that feel balanced and have good response, pitch stability, and that warm, deep tone that opens up without changing shape, the reeds have a really nice silhouette to them. I kind of describe it to my students as the neck, head, and beak of a duck or a goose or a swan. We also call it like a Coke bottle shape. It has that sort of concavity at the top of the back. It has that sort of convex, slightly bulbous quality in the heart, the apex of which is about 2/3 of the way up the heart, and then it has that concavity at the base of the tip, and the tip kind of looks like a candle flame. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you, is this all a process that happens in one day?
Not typically. I do think it's important to be able to do that in a sitting. I know many of you, and I myself also will do occasional with my students, like 10-minute read, 15-minute read, because I think it is a good skill to develop, to be able to sit down and make a read in one sitting that you can actually comfortably play on in a rehearsal or performance. But generally speaking, this is a process that takes, maybe 2 to 3 days, I would say, with a little bit of playing in there. I'll usually make what I call a day one read, which crows, ideally a C to a slightly high, sharp C, maybe not all the way up just yet. And that read might be playable, not necessarily something I'd really enjoy playing on, but maybe could in a pinch. And then the next day I do some refining, and I try to, start focusing on making that pitch even a little bit more stable, and hopefully getting a little bit more warmth and tonal stability as well. And then I'll do some playing on it, because, at this point, those finishing touches sometimes are things you can achieve with your knife, and sometimes are things you can achieve just by breaking the reed in and allowing it to settle by sort of showing it what you want it to be by playing on it. Although sometimes I think of it as the reed breaking you in. It's kind of it's a two-way street, right?
Sure.
It's like learning how to dance with a new dance partner. And sometimes, you don't want to just keep making your dance partner dance to your tune. You want to kind of find each other's rhythm. So I'm very judicious about how much of that process I do at that stage with scraping versus playing on it.
Right. I was going to ask, when you get to that stage and the reed profile looks beautiful and the proportions look physically correct, if the reed is still hard, perhaps that's the more advanced, like the intuitive part of the reed making. But how would you instruct a student at that point where to go? Play on it a little more, scrape on it a little more, Or is it just a matter of personal preference?
Well, I would definitely say all of the above. I would, I would definitely tell a student to trust the crow. I focus a lot on crow analysis in my teaching and in my own process, and I really believe that we can all become sort of crow whisperers, where we can tell exactly how a read is going to function and sound and feel based entirely on the crow. And of course, there is, I always remind myself and my students that about 5% of every read doesn't play the way it seems like it will based on the crow, but usually the other 95% do. So I tell my students at that stage to trust the crow analysis. And if they're generally happy with the way a read is functioning, except that it still feels like it could be a little bit more immediate in the response, a little more free-blowing, like say you want to play a second oboe audition and you want to be able to play, 20 pianissimo low D flats in a row. How do you get that out of a read without destabilizing or debalancing the other qualities? Well, of course that you have to take that on a case by case basis, but generally speaking, that's always going to involve some sort of either tip refinement where maybe you are just getting a little more taper in the tip, sort of scraping, starting, from the base of the tip with the weight of the knife slightly more towards the bottom corners and sides, and just lightly removing some cane up diagonally towards the top corners, so staying more along the sides of the tip and making the tip look even a little more lean and compact, the silhouette of it. Or sometimes it could be what I call positive scraping. And positive scraping is maybe a slightly difficult concept to explain, and when I say positive, I don't mean positive like as in, upbeat. I mean positive like film, development, positive, negative imagery. So it's what I mean by positive scraping is scraping a read in a way that actually makes it feel more up to pitch and optimistic, which is sort of counterintuitive, right? Because most scraping we do on a read tends to lower the pitch. But there are a few scrapes you can do on a read that are going to make it feel a little more free-blowing, and if not actually bring the pitch up, at least just prevent it from sinking further. So what that usually entails is doing an incredibly subtle scrape alongside of the spine of the heart, up near the very top of the heart, just to make the spine of the heart a little bit leaner, a little bit less robust, a little bit just more delicate, and maybe sometimes just flicking a tiny, what I call an ant's eyelash of cane out from the very top of the V, at the peak of the V at the top of the heart, not right through the center of that V, but just on either side of it. Just flick a little cane out of there at the very top of that peak in the base of the tip, and just those light scrapes along the spine and the top of the heart. And that'll suddenly make a read. It sort of brings out the upper partials a little bit more. It makes it feel like a little more zippy, a little more alive and ringing, a little more optimistic. So if your read is generally pretty good, but it feels a little thuddy or dull or slightly flat, slightly resistant, sometimes that's all you need to do to just give it that little bit of lift it needs.
I like that. I think students tend to scrape in the middle of the one channel of the heart, or one ventricle of the heart, or the middle of one part of the channel, and forget that there's almost like you get a little buildup by the rails, or you get a little buildup by the spine, and then you really just have this read that's just going to always fight you, and you're going to try to continue to scrape out of the windows, out of the middle of the heart, and not ever get the ease that you want, and then probably destabilize your read, like you say. And then I just love that ant's eyelash. I think what we need to do is get a photo of an ant and just, I've never seen an ant's eyelash. We got to get that on our Facebook page.
Call National Geographic. Oh, sorry.
I'm not even sure if they have eyelashes, to be totally honest. But I do want to make one quick comment about what we were just talking about.
Sure.
Because I found what you were saying really interesting, this notion of buildup that occurs and only taking out of like the channels of the heart, for example. One of the things that I tell my students is, because I think, so often we